Sure, I'm not getting feedback anywhere.
Yeah, I've got all my other volumes all the way down. Oh, my screen's changing.
Oh, I see it coming up. All right, so we're live on YouTube. We're going to wait for a couple other things to turn on live. Welcome, everyone, to our first beta testing live streaming. I'm not seeing us live on LinkedIn yet.
Oh, I don't even have LinkedIn open. Oh, it's supposed to be live everywhere, huh?
It's live everywhere. So for those of you who came in early, thanks for bearing with us. Just 1 minute while we get all these things turned on.
Figure this stuff out.
Happening now. Tap to join. Oh, it's live on LinkedIn as well. Hello, our LinkedIn friends. Hello, our YouTube friends, our Facebook friends. Wow, we are our Riverside FM friends. Well, we are just we're all over the place.
Everywhere. The Brothers Jarvi coming to you live.
Brothers Jarvi. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on this beta test of our live stream. We do a ton of webinars, a ton of training for advisors. Steven, that's actually my fifth advisor training this week. But we've never done live. And so theoretically, we can see your chat, unless your chat is like somehow rude or trolling, and we're going to pretend like we don't see it. If it's complimentary, we'll definitely see it. But Steven, today we're going to run through the 12-month strategy to actually get referrals from CPAs. We're going to cover this from both extremes. We're going to talk about how I built 1/3 of my practice, my $2 million a year practice, from CPA and attorney referrals. We're going to use COIs as kind of a blanket. But we're also going to talk about the other extreme, which is for even to this day, I haven't got a referral from you. But before you worked with advisors, how many years did you spend in corporate accounting, Steven?
Well, and this is where we're gonna get nuanced and petty on the CPA side. I wasn't in corporate accounting. In our world, corporate accounting is like I work at Microsoft doing Microsoft's accounting.
Interesting.
I worked in public accounting, so I worked for a big accounting firm, and we were doing tax and audit and all sorts of other work for companies. But I started that in 2010, and then before we went live, we were kind of joking that I started that in 2010. Probably at least every year or so for about a decade, you would give me some kind of pitch about how we should go into business together. And I mostly just disregarded what you said. And we went back to rock climbing or mountain biking, whatever we were doing. But yeah, I was doing that for 11 years before retirement tax services became a thing.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of tie those threads together as we go through today's presentation. We're going to go for about an hour. We'll take questions as they sort of work through the live stream system. So if we miss your question, we'll go back through and we'll follow up on that. But we want to make sure we're giving you really specific, actionable advice. In fact, started this off with a good friend of ours, a coaching member of ours, Nestor, who took this exact same process that we're walking through today. And Steven, in his very first meeting with the CPA, he got a referral. Now, I want to manage some expectations here. Nestor it's got to be the haircut, Steven, because it takes me way more than one meeting with one CPA or COI to get a referral. So your results will vary, but every person we've seen implement the system, we've seen get results. But it does take time, like anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Something about doing the simple things consistently over time. Simple, not to be confused with easy. Discipline is always hard, but the consistency over time is what produces the most reliable results.
Well, and right here's where I'm going to confess that this is my slide deck, not your slide deck, because it's all about me. Actually, you were just on the Michael Kitces podcast, right? Your episode 459?
459.
459. We're the only family that we're aware of that have had multiple family members on the podcast. So, the bar is being raised constantly. So quick background on me. I built an RA practice to $2 million a year with 2 team members. I then added a Gen 2 advisor. I was taking off 100 days a year while doing that. Last year, I had an 8-figure liquidity event, and I've transitioned 95% of my clients to my Gen 2 advisor. Though I'm still a practicing advisor, I still meet with clients. I still just 2 months ago closed an $11 million prospect. So I just mentioned that because everything that we talk about today are things from the real world. Now, Steven, you started your accounting career back in 2010 as a CPA. You were an adjunct professor. You were working with one of the top accounting firms in the country. And then since 2021, been working directly with advisors?
Yeah. So 2021 is when I changed my focus to work exclusively with financial advisors. And if you go back and listen to Kitces 007 in particular, your first episode where you kind of talk about some of the family background, like we grew up around financial planning. So I was always exposed to it. I was aware of it. I went the CPA route, and then 2021 started working exclusively with financial advisors, and feel really grateful. And it also really shows the value and the opportunity that in 4 years, I'm a household name in the financial planning world when it comes to tax planning, because there isn't a lot of great actionable content on this topic. You can find all the IRCs, you can find plenty of people who will go so deep on a particular topic, way deeper than I even can. But as far as like actionable, consistently producing results, here's how I talk with my clients to get them to do things, there's just not a lot out there.
I love it. I love it. All right. We're going to click through a lot of slides today. At the end of this, and we'll put it in the show notes. Actually, I should text it out already. I'll try to see if I can figure out when Steven's chat next, if I can text it out to everybody. We'll have a QR code at the end, or you can go to theperfectra.com/survey, fill out our quick survey, give us feedback on this event, especially how the live streaming worked. We'll send you a copy of this slide deck. If you jump on a call with our team to see where you are in this process, there's a couple other free resources they will send you. So first step in building relationships with centers of influence is, drumroll please, you need a list of potential centers of influence. Now, Steven, today we're going to talk predominantly about CPAs, but CPA could be interchangeable with tax preparer, enrolled agent, estate planning attorney, business banker, business broker, business realtor, commercial realtor, not usually a normal realtor. Their relationships are too short. We need people with long-term relationships. Mortgage brokers are also not necessarily a good source because their relationships are too short with their clients. But people, Steve, I'm not sure if you get this question. I get it all the time from advisors. Well, who do I know who to call? Like, where do I start? Like, how do you find these people?
Yeah, well, probably because I'm the tax guy. The first place I always tell them to look is on their existing clients' tax returns. The bottom of page 2, it's going to show you who prepared the tax return. And you might have clients, some of whom do their own tax return, but I'm going to go ahead and bet that a large portion of your clients have somebody that helps them prepare their tax return. And great news, if they prepare your client's tax return, they prepare tax returns for people like your clients. And so that is a fantastic place to start, especially as we meet more and more advisors who are virtual or a mix of in-person and virtual. Like, this is a great place to know, okay, here's CPAs, here's enrolled agents, tax preparers who I know work with people like my clients.
Yeah, and I want to highlight that there are 2 benefits to building this list. One is the potential for referrals, which is an incredible potential. The other is being able to introduce your clients to other professionals that you have vetted, right? So we all run into clients. Steven, I know you do this all the time. I do as well. Clients say, hey, I need a referral to X. I need to update my estate documents. Who should I call? I need to refinance or sell my business. Who should I call? Like, whatever that is, I don't want to ever say, well, you could Google it, I guess. Right? Like, I want to be able to say, oh, you need a CPA? You know what, Steven, he's actually my brother, solid CPA. I'd be glad to make that introduction. So the reason I highlight this is because I want this to be a no-lose proposition. Like, if I call every CPA in my town or in my niche, and they all tell me like, hey, I would never send you a referral, at least I know who they are in town and I know who to make my introductions to. So we keep a list in my office of all of the accountants that we work with and all of the estate planning attorneys we work with. And then we kind of have a miscellaneous connection list. But that way I can say, hey, Steven, you need estate documents. I've actually met with basically every estate planning attorney in town or every estate planning attorney in this niche. And based on you and your personality and your needs, I'd recommend that you either talk to Bob over here at, Bob Inc. or Sue over here at Sue Inc., like whichever that is. And so I have a real leg up.
Matthew, you're one of the few people I can confidently say talks to even more advisors every year than I do. And so I'd be curious if you've seen this same shift over the last couple of years. But this has gone from a few years ago where kind of like your approach was, hey, I want this to be a resource for my clients. I want to be able to get referrals. You were very proactively going out and doing this, kind of leading the charge. What I'm hearing more and more from advisors is that whether they're putting this out there or not, their clients are more consistently coming to them as the advisor and essentially saying, hey, I'm not getting good help on tax. And so, Matthew, I need you to help me with this. So it's not a matter of, are you going to be proactive? If you're not already, you're going to start getting this from your clients because they're not getting it anywhere else. And you're the financial person in their life. They're going to come to you. And so, I mean, just think about how that plays out. If every client starts coming to you and saying, Matthew, I really need some help on who I can get or who I can find as a resource. And you're just like, Google it. Like, this isn't going to go well for you.
Yeah. Well, in this, I mentioned earlier, 1/3 of my clients came from referrals from centers of influence. 1/3 came from networking. This also improves my networking, right? Not just inside the professional circle, but when I'm networking in my community, wherever that is, I'm networking and just random people have questions, I can also make those introductions. So my first step is to build the list. You can put it in your CRM, which is ideal. You can put it in Excel. If you're in growth mode, my goal would be to add 5 to 10 names to this list every time. And then in just a second, we're going to talk about what to do with that list. But the first thing we need to know is who we're going to talk to. If your niche or your geographical region has far more than you could ever contact, I would start with people that look like your target market. So my target market was always retirees. So I just be really honest, I would always look for like the oldest centers of influence I could find because they're the closest to retirement, which also means their clients are the closest to retirement. And it means they're thinking about retirement. Now, that doesn't mean that a freshly minted CPA can't have retiree clients. Like they certainly can, but they're not thinking about retirement. They're probably thinking more about business transactions. They're thinking about wealth accumulation. And if that's your niche, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, let's keep going. Once I have this list, or as I build this list, these rotate on top of each other. So I'm always building a list. I'm always calling because some people are going to be out of business. Some people are just not going to be friendly. Some people are going to have in-house wealth management and they refuse to send external referrals. So here's where every tax or every finance planner goes wrong. And Steven, I went wrong when talking to you for this many years, which is we come in and we say, I, me. I want more clients. Send me more referrals. Well, Steven, why is that not going to work? Like from a philosophical level, that's not going to work, but specific to CPAs and other professionals, like why is that such a detrimental approach?
Well, I mean, even just for the people watching, I mean, think about the last time you actually gave someone a referral. Because for most of us, we don't do it very often. There's very few businesses, people that we would confidently every time say, yes, absolutely, you should go work with these people, because it's this huge like transfer of trust. Like I'm taking on this massive risk. And especially if I look at, you want me to refer one of my clients who pays me and keeps me in business. And you want me to refer them to a service that I may or may not fully understand. Like I don't know really what it is you do or how you charge or what the client experience is going to be. That's a huge transfer of risk for really, I mean, if all you've said is, hey, send me your referrals, like I have no concept of what's in it for me. And not that we're all like selfish, terrible people, but we all are self-interested. That's how we stay alive. And so if it's not clear what the value proposition for me and then my client is, like, I'm just going to dismiss it and move on.
A couple other threads I want to pull on that, Steven. Have you ever met, or how often do you meet tax preparers, CPAs, enrolled agents, whatever the case may be, who have a shortage of clients, whose pipeline is dry, who like if they could take on another 100 returns, they could take them tomorrow? Like, how about you personally? Like, if you had capacity for 500 returns, would it be hard for you to find 500 more returns to do?
No, if I could hire another CPA tomorrow, next week, I would have all 500 of those returns signed up.
Yeah.
I tell people no constantly. We have a huge wait list, which we love all of the advisors who lean into our community and our programs. But yeah, if I got on this call today and said, yeah, send me client, I would have dozens of advisors saying, hey, Steven, you told me I was at the front of the list. So no, finding the returns is not the problem.
Yes, I just want to highlight that because the more I can get into the other person's shoes, and we're going to talk about an even like, I don't say darker angle, but a more intense angle. The more I can get the other person's shoes, the better this is going to be. So when I come, if I'm able to sit down across from you, Steven, as a CPA, I need to keep in mind that you don't ever have to think about business development. For better or worse, like that's not going to cross your mind. So it's always on my mind as a financial advisor. It's never on your mind. The other is you're always over capacity, right? Like financial advisors never work compared to tax preparers. Like tax preparers are working more during tax season than most advisors work all year. So never thinking about business building, and really don't have a lot of bandwidth to be like, oh, hey, Matt seems like a nice guy. I wonder how I can help him build his business. It's more like, shit, will this guy get out of here? I got like 57 more returns to finish today.
Today. That's 57.
Here's the other thing I want to highlight. You tell me if I'm way off on this.
Okay.
As financial advisors on my side of the table, certified financial advisors, certified financial planners, we are at the bottom of the pecking order when it comes to professions. Like we're the least real profession. And I'm in this profession. I've been in it for 22 years. Yeah. But we look at CPAs and we look at attorneys and we try to say like, oh, these are our brethren and sisters and professional services. That's not really the case, Steven. So to be honest with us, from the CPA standpoint, how do financial advisors rank? And I'm not looking to just crap on financial advisors here. I just want to make sure that my fellow advisors understand where this lays.
Yeah, I mean, so across the course of my career, like, I mean, I spend more time with financial advisors more, so I see more of the marketing. And yes, the CFP is pouring tons of dollars into ads to try to get awareness up. But at the end of the day, it's still it's a marketing acronym. It's not really a license on the same level as a CPA or an attorney. And so and that's from the consumer perspective as well. That's not just CPAs feeling high and mighty. Like that, when I get on a call with an advisor who's worked with a client for 20 years and they see I'm a CPA, they immediately want to know my opinion. And it's really interesting seeing how advisors react to that, because understandably, some of them don't love that dynamic. But the ones who are focused on client outcome are like, okay, well, if this is what the client needs, like, let's do it. And now the other thing I want to highlight, because you're absolutely right, that on the list of professional designations and how much respect they get from the consumer, financial advisors, whichever designation you want to pick, are not high on that list. But that means that the flip side is that for advisors who are intentional and have a system for this, it's really easy to separate yourself from the pack, because the flip side of the CPA being such a trusted designation is that there's this base level assumption that we're all really, really good at what we do. And if the assumptions that we're all here, it's harder to show people that there's a distinction. If the assumption is we're all way down here, like, I can blow it out of the water instantly.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And so I just, again, it's not to beat up on financial planners. It's just that we need to come as advisors with a little bit of humility. And if we sort of understand, this doesn't mean I need to come with my head hung low and, like I'm the lowly, the lowly of the lowly, but I need to come in with respect. So here's the approach I use with, we're going to say tax preparers against CPAs, attorneys. That works with them all. I can call, so Steven, if your name showed up on my list as a CPA in my area, I would call your office. Hey, my name is Matthew Jarvis, financial planner in town. A few of my clients have asked me for introductions to a tax preparer. Now, I'm going to side note here. Is that true? 100% that's true. So I'm approaching with integrity, right? So a handful of my clients have asked me for introductions to tax preparers. I can't promise that I can refer any of them to you. That would be disingenuous. But I want to make sure that if I make an introduction, it's somebody who's a right fit for what you do. And so because I can't promise you any referrals, I want to be respectful of your time. Steven, I'd like to pay for an hour of your time to ask you a handful of questions about the kind of clients that are the best fit for you. And if I make that introduction, how can I make that as seamless as possible for you? So, Steven, whatever your hourly rate is, I'd be glad to pay that. We can schedule a time to sit down together. Now, a couple things come up here. Steven, how often do people call you or call other tax preparers offering to pay their hourly rate, like right up front? Like, how often does that come up?
Especially from another professional, almost never. That's just not the approach. Everybody wants a favor. Everybody wants an intro call. They want a demo. They expect the initial part to be free, even though right out of the gate I can offer expertise.
Yes. Which I was on a call recently talking about this, and I said, guys, the equivalent of that, if I call and ask Steven for an hour of his time for free, even if I'm going to give him referrals or whatever that means, that's like me going to a restaurant and just asking for a comped meal, like a restaurant I've never been to. Like, go to a nice steakhouse. Like, you know what, I was thinking about, sending some clients here. Could I just have a free meal? That would be absurd. We would never think to do that. And yet we do that with tax preparers and with centers of influence all the time. Okay. So when you make these calls, let's say you have 10 people on your list. Now you really need to be doing 10 a week. 2 or 3 of them just aren't going to answer. 2 or 3 of them are so busy, they're not seeing anybody. Like, they haven't even seen their spouse in months, right? Like, they're not seeing anybody. But you're going to find 4 or 5 on that list that agree to meet. They're going to be a little bit confused, but they're going to agree to meet. And so when they agree to meet, I'm going to send them my questionnaire ahead of time. And if you stay to the end of the call, we'll send you a copy of this questionnaire. You can get it from the team. I'm going to send them the questions. I have different lists for different professionals. And so I'm going to say, Steven, again, purpose of this meeting is I want to see that when my clients ask me for an introduction to a tax preparer, I send them to the right one and I make this as seamless as possible. I've got a list of questions that just helps me better understand who's the right fit for you. And with your permission, we're going to go ahead and go through that list. Now, I brought in with me Steven's payment. I either found a check, who knows where you found a check, or I did his online payment before I came in so that, again, Steven knows I'm serious. And I'm, again, the only person, let alone the only other professional who's paid in advance. Steven, as you look through this list of questions, it's a little small on my screen, any of them that you think, well, this is ridiculous, I can't believe somebody would ask this, or any that kind of stand out to you on this?
Well, as we go through the list, I mean, one of the thoughts that comes to mind, part of the feedback I hear from people who haven't done this yet, there can be this kind of impression of, well, geez, I don't want to ask 50 different accountants the same questions. Like, I'm going to get bored of this. Like, there's going to be so much repetition. It's like, this is what you do with clients anyways, right? How many times have you explained cash management? How many times have you explained investments or insurance or any other, like, that is the nature of what we do. It's all about the reps. And I think more important than the questions is the framing that you talked about of how we're coming into this and how we're setting expectations. Because if I just show up and I just dive right in, say, hey, I'm here to pay for an hour of your time. So how do you decide which clients go on extension? Like that feels almost like an interrogation. And so that framing up front is so important. And then I would also, and because I use this all the time now too, especially when I'm really genuinely just looking for resources from other people. This is how I reach out to professionals. Hey, can I pay for an hour of your time? And I'm thinking about, sometimes this comes from our other reps of doing this, or talking to another advisor who's done it before. I'm thinking about what some of those questions might be, or what some of the follow-up questions might be. So under tax practice, it says, how do you decide which clients go on extension? This is a great question. But if you're asking a CPA who's never talked to a financial advisor, you also got to be thinking about, well, what if their response is, why does that matter? Or 90% of them go on extension, or 10% of them go on extension. Like, you've got to be thinking about, like, how's the rest of this conversation play out?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Stephen. Let's jump on this extension question, right? So if I frame it with, hey, one of the concerns I hear from clients about their tax repair is they don't understand why they went on extension. And Stephen, you and I both know it's usually because they sent you the stuff on the 14th and want to know why they weren't filed by the 15th. Like, I'm coming in on Stephen's side of the table, but it helps me to be able to articulate that to clients. So if I can tell clients, hey, listen, if you don't have your stuff in by February 28th, you're going on extension. That's just how Stephen works. And if that's not okay with you, that's fine. So I really want to come in from, we're on the same side of the table. I'm trying to understand. I've also done, Stephen, your point, at least basic research on the person I'm meeting with. So I've Googled you, right? And I've seen, oh, here's where you went to school. And and you were an adjunct professor. And I saw that you like Spartan races. And I can just be really honest. Like, Stephen, I gotta be honest, I did a quick Google search on you before I came in. Dude, how long have you been doing Spartan races, right? Or like whatever that is. I'm showing that I'm here as a fellow professional, not as like a leech or a vendor or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
Okay. My questions take about 30 minutes of the 60 minutes that we have, right? And so we get to the end of 30 minutes and I say, Stephen, this is super helpful. This is really going to help me guide the right clients to you and also steer clear the wrong clients. And by the way, you guys saw there was a couple of questions about like, what do financial advisors do to make your life easier? And what do they do to make your life harder? And I said, Stephen, I really appreciate that feedback on how I can be a better collaborator with professionals. I see that we have a few minutes left. Do you mind if I take just a minute to explain how we help potential clients make an educated and informed decision about my firm? And every single person says yes, because I've spent a half hour learning about them. I've paid for a full hour. There's still time left. And then I go through that process, which is a video for another day. So, Stephen, we've trained a lot of advisors, you and I have, on this process. But one of the things that comes up most often is, I had this meeting, it went really well. Now what do I do? Like we had this meeting, we high-fived and it was great. They didn't just send me a million referrals. What do I do the next day or the next month?
Yeah, and by default, I don't, this wasn't like an actual class I took in college, but it seems like we all kind of got the initial training of being a professional of some kind. Is you take everyone to lunch, you invite everyone to happy hour, you take everyone golfing. Like, there's this really vague idea that we should nurture relationships, but we were all given terrible advice on how to do that. And so a lot of us kind of grew up in our professional lives terrible at actually developing quality professional relationships.
Yep. So what I like to do is I treat this every center of influence. So as long as they didn't seem obnoxious, where I was like, I don't really want to talk to this guy or gal ever again, or they told me like, hey, I hate all financial advisors, I think you're all the scum of the earth. Like, aside from that, I'm going to treat them as some kind of hybrid of my top prospect and my top client, meaning I want to be in contact with them every 90 days. So we're going to use a couple examples. One is, I'm going to invite them to any workshop or event that I'm doing. So if I'm doing a client education event or a public seminar or anything like that, I'm going to print out an invitation. I'm going to put a handwritten note on it that says, hey, Stephen, just wanted you to see what we were doing with clients. Love to have you join. Now, if you want to next level that thing, go through the headache, and it is a bit of a headache to get CE and CPE credits available, so that if Stephen decides to attend, he's also going to get CE credit for it. Now, again, as advisors, we may or may not, hint, wink, wink, hypothetically get like 20 CE credits knocked out in like an hour. Like, that may or may not happen. I don't want to speak to that. But Stephen, for CPAs and for attorneys, like, it's butt in seat for 50 minutes or no credit, right? Like, it's a pretty strict standard.
It is a lot stricter. There's some creative CPAs out there when it comes to that, but most of them, yes, and it's typically a higher number of hours. And even for the stereotypical CPAs who became CPAs because they're introverts and like to hide in their office, like we all like interacting with people to some degree or another. And so and to your point, Matt, we want to do this on a regular basis. And so maybe they don't come to every one of them, but you're now reaching out to them in a way that feels meaningful and impactful, and not just like annoying somebody again of, hey, you haven't sent me a referral yet. Like, let's go to lunch again. Let's go to lunch again. Like, everybody knows what a free lunch means.
Yes. Yeah. I very rarely have COIs attend our events. I send them invitations every single. It's very rare, but what I've noticed is that it's a way for me to signal like, wow, I do a lot for my clients without me walking in and flexing and being like, hey, look how much I do for clients. So it's this subtle way. Same with our quarterly client newsletter. Put a post-it on there, right? Hey, Bob CPA or Bob attorney. Just wanted to see what you're sending to clients this quarter. Hope you're doing well. Give me a call if you need anything. So I'm just looking for excuses to stay in front of them. Steven, we're coming up on the holiday season. Does it seem inappropriate if you receive a Christmas card or whatever holiday someone celebrates as a fellow professional?
I don't think so. I love seeing them.
Yeah. Yep. The key here, same with client Christmas cards or holiday cards, the more personalized, the better. So if it's a generic card, it's clearly just the generic one that went to everybody with a fake signature, that ain't going to go very far. The picture of your family, or at a minimum, the picture of your team is going to go a lot further. Okay, let's keep marching through this. Steven, January is about the latest you need to be talking, especially we're talking about tax repairs. Like that's sort of like the end of the season to approach. I'm like, what would you put the line where like, dude, you should not be calling me?
Yeah. So Matt, from my perspective, I think we're going to get into some of this because you're really great about it. Like once the calendar year turns over, your reach outs to tax professionals need to be focused on this coming filing season, or you need to just stay away. Like, it's not that we just ignore tax professionals for those couple of months, because they might need information and insight from you to serve their clients. But this is not the time to throw another CE event that you're inviting them to. This isn't the time to Matt, this isn't even the time to offer to pay for an hour of their time to ask questions that aren't related to specific clients they already work with.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. It is only to deliver value. So this little image here, this is, Steven, you must have, how many different desktop guides have you come up with at this point? 8, 10? I can't remember the number. It's quite a few.
There's a lot. Actually, as we're recording this, I'm going to be with my team next week, and we're in the process of refreshing them all for this next year. So we're super excited. In fact, like this, I just was looking at this one this last week because my team's updating all the data.
Yeah, and this is the retirement plan desktop guide. So the reason I highlight this, so for my centers of influence, accountants, attorneys, really anyone who's in the finance space, I like to take the Retirement Tax Services, Steven's company, the RTS desktop guides. I like to print them. I take them down to Kinko's or wherever, FedEx, UPS. I have them printed on cardstock and laminated. And I drop them off and I say, hey, I thought this was a super valuable resource. I thought you might want a copy. If you want another, I keep a stack of them at the office. I'm going to move some crap off my desk. Like I have my desktop guides on my desk all the time. And so even if you're like, well, how could I bring a desktop tax guide to a CPA? Like that's kind of insulting. No, it's not. Do you think the CPA has memorized the ranges of the 24% tax? And I don't think so. Or the contribution limits to everything that changes every year? No. So to have this, the number of centers of influence I go to and they have the desktop guide that I brought them on their desk is incredible. It's incredible.
Well, Matt, the other one related to that we encourage advisors to do, whether it's our desktop guides or the newsletters we put out, is to reach out to those centers of influence that they're building relationships with and say, hey, here's a resource I got that I've been using with clients, but I would love your perspective on what else I should include or how else I should be talking to clients about this. Because the other thing that gets missed a lot, especially across professions, is really that approach where you're clearly saying, I see us as peers, I see you as an expert. And it's a bit condescending to just come and say, Matthew, I think you're a really smart guy, and so I want to be friends with you. But if I say, hey, Matt, I got this resource from this CPA that I follow. I've been using it with clients, but I would love you, since you work with so many of my clients, I would love your insight on other things I should be talking about. Because then it's like, oh, Matt values what I have to say.
Yeah, no, and you can do this. Oh, excuse me. This is another example. Here's another example of this. This is, you have a really great estimated tax payment guide. It's another great resource. We use this all the time. This is one to use that approach, Steven, that you said. If I'm going to a tax repair, I'm going to say, hey, again, I'm outside of tax season. hey, I'd be curious how you're helping clients make their estimated payments, because we see a lot of clients miss their estimated payments or do them wrong or forget them or they're confused by them. Steven, can I buy an hour of your time, or, we can meet over lunch, my treat? I'd just love to better understand, like, how do I help educate clients on estimated payments so they don't come to you at the end of the year and be like, oh, there was 4 of those, I only made 2 of them. And so again, that approach, to your point, is coming in saying, hey, I acknowledge that you're an expert, and you are, but I want to collaborate. Like, I'm also not a dummy in this situation.
Yeah, Matt, anytime we have these conversations, like I always have to remind myself, and I think I'm sure other people feel the same way, of like, I know that what you and I were talking about are relatively simple things. Like we were 30 minutes in, we have not said anything earth shattering. That's this idea that no one's ever come across in any form. What we're doing here, though, is helping to kind of organize what those simple things are that will make the difference if we do them consistently. Because even though they sound simple, you mentioned it before, like, this takes lots of reps. This takes 5 or 10 a week consistently over months. And so even if we assume that 99% of financial advisors understand these concepts, geez, do 5% of them consistently do this? Is it 2%? Is it, we can be generous and say it's 10%. Most people, whether it's taxes, we can pick any topic, most people aren't consistently doing the disciplined things that make a difference. So it's easy. It can be easy to write this off as, well, I already knew that stuff. That's not even, Matt's talking about his book and this and that. Like, I understand those things. Great. But are you doing them? Yeah. That's what counts.
Dude, I 100% agree. As you're saying that, it made me think, you and I recently were at a training with Alex Hormozi and Alex Hormozi's team. If you're not following Alex's work, it's really great work. And he has this rule of repetitions. He says you need to do 100 repetitions a day. If you want to grow your practice or grow your business, he's general business, not just practices, you need to do 100 reps a day. For this to work, if you do 10 reps a week, which would be building your list or reaching out in some fashion, you do 10 reps a week, which is not a lot of time, 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, your practice is going to explode. Like, I've just not seen anyone do 10 reps a week and not have this work incredibly well.
Well, Matt, real quick on that, because this is going to feel like a little bit of a shift, because I always loved your wording around helping people understand that nobody thinks in percentages, and you like, hey, like, just say marshmallow because it's the same things. People don't think in percentages. I'm astounded at how often people, financial advisors, CPAs, who are supposed to be good at math, don't do the math on things. Because at 10 a week, that's 520 reps a year. And so, like, these things add up if we do them consistently over time. And so you might think, geez, if I call 10 CPAs, how am I going to grow my practice by 1/3 from CPAs? Well, you're not, if you only call 10 CPAs. But if you are disciplined and do this over time, these things stack up, and we should all be able to easily do that math to say, oh, over time, I'm going to get those results.
Yep. Yeah, that's spot on. Okay, we talked about the desktop tax guide. And we talked about, again, this idea, can I pay for an hour of your time? This is when you're going back to ones you already know. Steven, sometimes advisors have head trash to reach out to COIs that they already know. They might go to church with them. They know them in the community, and they think, well, how do I restart this? And it's just an approach. Again, we're going to use CPA as our example. Hey, Steven, I've really redoubled my effort on the tax side of financial planning, not tax prep, but just like understand the implications of taxes. I recently attended a webinar with 2 of the top guys in our industry. Love to sit down with you and get your thoughts on this to make sure I'm understanding it right. But especially, Steven, so that I don't cross any lines and I know when to tell them, like, hey, listen, you need to talk to your CPA about this. Is that okay? Could we grab lunch, or can I pay for an hour of your time for that? So there's always so many ways to reset expectations on that.
Well, and taxes are probably the easiest topic for this, because taxes come back around every year. Congress makes changes every year. Even if Congress doesn't make any changes, all of the brackets shift every year. Like, taxes is probably the easiest topic to say, hey, it's been a little while, but here's this change that's prompted me to reach out to you.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Steven, let's talk gift baskets for 1 second. And I also want to, when we're on this topic, sometimes we get pushback from advisors. I was on a call just this week with 200 or 300 advisors, and I was going through this strategy, hey, pay for an hour of your time. And they said, wait a second, won't this get me in trouble with FINRA or the SEC, or won't this get the CPA in trouble with the AICPA? Isn't this some sort of bribing? Is this revenue sharing? So Steven, would you talk about it first from the CPA side? Again, you're a CPA, not an attorney for CPAs. So just talk about it in generalities from the CPA side, and I'll talk about it from the financial advisor side. Again, we're not your attorneys listening, but the lines are pretty clear on this thing.
Yeah, we're definitely not attorneys here. I'm kind of smiling thinking back through this because it's been a while since I've looked at the actual rules. Because at least on the CPA side of things, the rules are much stricter on gifts that we can give to actual clients, and so
Hmm.
we run into issues when it's a client relationship where there's gifts involved or like entertainment type things. But from my entire career, every size of firm I've ever worked at, we always get gift baskets every year. Like that's never been a thing where someone's like, oh no, let's not eat the giant bag of cookies because they came from a financial advisor. And so I'll admit it's been a long time since I've looked at the rules on the receipt side of that. But like, if you send me a Rolex, I might kind of squint and say, wait, what's going on here? And then I'll show you a picture of how great my Rolex looks. But no, it's really more an issue when we're talking about client stuff.
Yeah, and there's a couple of clear lines here, right? If by chance you were involved in some kind of audit work, right, there's some really hard lines there, which is not the case between any financial advisor and the CPA. And
Yeah.
if you were doing anything that was like a wink and a nod, like the Rolex example, that's a wink and a nod, like I'm trying to buy you off. Me
Yeah.
paying for an hour of your time, that is a 100% legitimate business opportunity. Now, if you
Yeah.
said, and if you put this in writing too, but if you said like, hey, Steven, for every referral you send me, I'll buy 100 hours of your time. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. But me saying, hey, Steven, as a fellow professional, I'd like to pay for an hour of your time that I intend to use and to get professional feedback, there is zero issues there.
Well, Matt, I would love to see or hear what you've seen in practice, what you hear from other advisors, because it's more the exception that I'll get a question about, well, from the advisor of like, hey, like, what if I go and try to set up a rev share with the CPA or get some like formal thing going on? And there are people doing that. There are firms that's their area of emphasis. And there's people that formalize those deals. It's all legitimate and legal and compliance approved and all those kinds of things, but it tends to be the exception, not the norm, that people are looking for that in either direction. Like at the end of the day, everybody has to pay taxes. Most everyone I come across is looking for better help on tax. And so like we don't even need to get into the weeds of how's this rev share going to work, especially if, like we've been talking about, you lead with here's how I'm going to deliver value. At the end of the day, we all are trying to create great outcomes for our clients.
Yeah, I'm glad you highlight that. Rev share is a totally different game. There are some people
Yeah.
that do that very well. It's state specific. The rules are very strict. The disclosures are very strict. Not that it can't work. Our good friend Paul Segni over at Integrated
Yeah.
Partners, he's built an entire multi-billion-dollar RA firm around those rev share agreements. Like it can definitely be done. You can look. We'll link some interviews we've done with Paul. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
But this is saying, hey, I need an hour of your time. A couple things on gift baskets. I love doing gift baskets not just during tax season. That's a little bit on the nose because that's when everybody's doing it. I like to do it with each extension filing deadline because nobody else is thinking about that except for the tax preparers.
Yep.
It needs to be quality but not expensive. I would stick, if for me, I stay under the SEC and FINRA's $100 limit on gifting just as a rule of thumb. I don't think it's necessarily applicable here, but as a rule, it's great. So like a giant bottle of Advil with a note saying, I hope this takes care of the tax season headache, healthy snacks, don't send junk, those kinds of things. Just be a little bit creative. Don't send them junk though. Like if you send them a bunch of pens with your name on it, that's not a gift. That's just junk.
Yeah.
Okay. Stephen, during tax season or just throughout the year, are there ways that advisors can, I guess, what are the ways advisors can offer to support tax preparers in a way that doesn't come off as like, hey, you can't do your job, so I'll do it for you?
Yeah, the two things that come to mind, you've got a screenshot here of the one, which is the 1099 letter. We'll spend a little bit more time on that.
Yes,
But
please.
the one I really appreciate from advisors is when I get a notice from them when they've done some kind of proactive planning with their client. And that most of the time it's not even, hey, Stephen, I need you to do all this stuff as a result of this. It's just, Stephen, I want to let you know that we both work with Bob and Sue, and we just help Bob and Sue convert $40,000 to Roth, and here's how the taxes were paid, or here's how they are going to get paid. Just wanted you to be aware of this. We had a couple of examples just this week of advisors that we work with reaching out on these exact kind of things. Of hey, I don't. One was related to some energy credits that are getting ready to expire. One was related to a business sale, but it's just, hey, Stephen, just wanted to make you aware. And that's going to create better outcomes for the client at tax time. But from the CPA side, then it's a way for that advisor to get back to the top of my list of people I'm aware of that I know are proactively doing good things for their clients.
Yep. The 1099 letter, which again you mentioned is right here on the screen. everyone on this call needs to be working on this right now. You need to have this queued up before the end of the year because you want to get it out in the first 2 weeks of January. We've done entire trainings, Stephen. You have entire newsletters and workbooks on how to do this. But the basic is, I want the client, and by extension, their tax preparer, to know all of the accounts they have through our office and what tax documents they'll be getting, if any. So the mistake that we make is just saying, oh, here's the 3 you'll get. Well, what about the account last year that had a 1099 and didn't this year? Well, this year it didn't have a distribution. Well, there's no way for the tax preparer to know that. Or, hey, we did a QCD last year, or we did a Roth conversion, or we set up a donor advised fund. These are all things that don't really show up in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I really like about the 1099 letter is just a good reminder that by default, good tax preparation won't happen by default. Because the tax documents inherently don't have all the information that's needed. And that's even if they are correct. The IRS generously is about 10 years behind on technology. And so literally just this last week, had a client that married couple, they both, of course, at the same time, same mailbox, each got separate copies of the same letter, letting them know that the math got adjusted on their taxes this year and that they would be expecting a little bit bigger refund. And then this is in November, and that's important because 6 weeks ago, the IRS was supposed to stop issuing paper checks. 2 days after these 2 letters that came, they got a check in the mail for this refund that was supposed to have been applied to their next year's estimated payments. And so all that to say that things don't always even get done correctly. And even if they do, it's not always going to be clear come tax time unless you're proactively letting the tax preparer know.
Boy, Steven, not to sidebar on IRS tax letters, but we're seeing, I know I've seen a bunch come through my office, tax letters from the IRS that say, hey, we made an adjustment, and all of the before and after numbers are exactly the same. And they're just like, hey, your numbers were these and our numbers were these, and they're exactly the same dollar for dollar. And you're like, well, what happened? But somewhere in the IRS's system, something flagged it and it kicked out this letter, which, by the way, the IRS puts that on their list of audits when they report to Congress what they do each year. Just a little side tangent there. So anyway, there's a lot of these going on. You want to be proactive helping with clients. Steven, we've overlaid all of these activities onto a 12-month calendar. The months you do these in is not the critical thing, other than don't bother tax preparers during tax season. The goal of laying this on an annual calendar is that every month you know what to do. And that's one of the things we focus, Steven, you and I, on our training with advisors is super tactical. Like, what do I need to do this week and this month? Not like go out and see the people or some vague notion like that.
Well, and Matt, let's even go back to your comment about doing 10 reps a week. This can't just be that like on Sundays, I'm getting ready for the week. It's like, okay, I will, at some point this week, I am going to make phone calls. Like this needs to be time blocked. This needs to be specific. The reason we lay it out across 12 months is as kind of an overall like framework when this is going to happen. When you get to those individual months, this needs to go on team members' calendars. This needs to go on your calendars. Like you need to give yourself every opportunity to be successful, because if willpower were enough, we'd all have 6 packs and $1 billion. And I don't yet. I'm working on it.
That's right. We would need to have this discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
Steven, you mentioned this at the beginning of our call. In fact, when you and I first started training advisors together on taxes, one of the things we heard most often from very successful people is, why would you tell anyone else how to do this? Like, why don't you just keep all this information for yourself?
Yeah.
There's a couple of reasons there. One, we learned this and we want to pass it forward. There's something to that. Obviously, we're here to make money as well. But at the end of the day, like 100 advisors will hear this, maybe 5% will do it, because as you pointed out, it's not complicated, but it's not easy either. So 95% of people listening aren't going to do it. The 5% that will, this is what we promised at the beginning. You can go to theperfectra.com/survey, or you can scan this QR code. Give us your feedback on this presentation, specifically how it worked on a live stream. And then you can schedule a call with our team. Let them know where you're at in the process of COIs, and they'll get you the pieces that are most applicable to where you're at. So a copy of the slide deck, the questions that we ask centers of influence, the desktop tax guide, and the prospect process masterclass are all ones. Depending on where you're at in your practice evolution and what you need, they will get you connected with that. Steven, with that, any other parting thoughts? Again, you work with a lot of advisors throughout the year. Anything else that you think, boy, guys, you got to keep this in mind when you're working with centers of influence?
Yeah, it might be a little bit broader than centers of influence, but what as you phrase that question of what am I hearing from advisors, probably one of the most common questions I get from advisors is, "Hey, what software can I use to make this easier for me?" And
Yep.
and I am all for software. I think sometimes I come across as like anti-AI or anti-software. I'm not. Software makes my life so much better. But we've got to remember that software, whether it's AI driven or not, these are tools. And just like tools in our backyard, they need an operator. And the better that we can become as operators, the better value we're going to deliver to clients.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we went through this whole thing without talking about any software, not because those things aren't important or valuable or that we're anti-software, but even just at our summit last month, Matt, there was a couple of examples that came up from people in our audience. They weren't paid by me, I promise. They were just sharing their genuine experience of someone saying, "Hey, did XYZ tool make you an expert at taxes?" And no. Following along with retirement tax services, doing these master classes, using these references, that's what made me better at this. And so it's a combination of knowing what tools are out there, but being willing to put the reps in. And so whether it's building relationships with COIs or reviewing tax returns, doing proactive Roth conversions, whatever the topic is, you've got to remember that if you want to be in that 5% who's really making a difference for their clients, you are going to have to do some hard work.
Yeah.
The things that you're sharing, and it's very, it's great that people can scan this QR code and get these resources. Everyone absolutely should. But please remember, you're still going to have to do some work. And it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. It's going to be a little bit hard. And then you're going to see the results. And it's going to be amazing.
I love it. I love it. Well, Steven, thanks for jumping on this live stream. For everyone that joined us live, thanks so much for letting us test this out. It seems like it worked pretty well. And for anyone watching the recording, thanks for watching the recording. Steven, thank you again. And until next time, everyone, happy planning.